Review Show. I am one of your hosts, Drew, and this is
Brandon.
Nice to meet you, Brandon.
Welcome to AA.
I'm glad to be here.
We're drinking this afternoon.
No, I'm not.
Got some Miller Lite and some ice cubes.
The good old Ohio way.
It's actually a Monster, but I'm fancy, so I like
Wait, was it
my
really?
glassware. Yeah.
Kind of a
We went
problem.
over this, dude.
Kind of. Oh, wait, I didn't know that's actually what it was.
Yeah, it's a Monster.
I don't know.
The gross Monster.
The gross one, the original one. Yeah, no one likes it. Thank you guys for tuning in for another episode, for being here, whether you listen to every single episode as your first one. We do appreciate you being here, listening to us talk about nonsense for 40 minutes. It's only nonsense if you want it to be. Take it how you want it. But today, we have a really good episode. We are going to be talking about product research, and specifically private label product research. Now, I think when it comes to private label, it gets kind of lost in the e-commerce world as an opportunity or something, or an actual avenue for you to go down and to create a successful business off of, just because it's not your get rich quick scheme, so to speak.
Well, I think it's sold that way to a lot of people, and that's kind of where the hype comes from. And then they try, the bare minimum that people recommend, and then it doesn't work, and then they're like, oh, well, Amazon doesn't work.
Sure.
Unfortunately.
Amazon doesn't work for a lot of things.
Nothing's perfect. If you approach it with that mindset, it's not that bad. But if you expect it to be perfect, then you're like, man, this really sucks, because stuff goes wrong all the time.
Constantly.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
But we're going to go over some good ways to be able to do product research, to identify different opportunities that are not, not just your what everyone's talking about type of stuff. So excited to get into it.
Oh, definitely. So just kind of a quick little review of what we're going to get into here. We're going to talk about how do you go about, or how do you find products for your brand? Is it difficult to do product research? How long can it take to find a good product? And then kind of where, after all that, where do you really begin in the whole process? So let's get into it. The first talking point for us would be how to find products for your brand. So how would you say you go about it?
So I think to answer that question, you really have to look at yourself, your business. Where are you? Is this your first product? Do you have a few products already? Because that's really going to make it's going to make a difference as to the approach that you take. And we'll kind of get into successfully how to build a brand before you actually have products. That's going to kind of give you a direction for products, and then some ways to kind of narrow down where your opportunities are. But you've got to figure that out first. But then also, it's something that the numbers kind of always change, but the budget that you have set aside for products. There's opportunities out there for more expensive products. Not everyone's going to be able to take advantage of those. There's opportunities for cheaper products, but perhaps the sell-through rate on some of those are going to be where you can only afford a few weeks worth of inventory. Is it worth the launch process to sell through everything in 2 weeks and then be out of stock for 2 months, 3 months? You're going to undo everything you just did. So yeah, you kind of have to step back, evaluate your situation, and then you'll be able to take a direction forward once you know where you are and where you want to go.
Definitely. And it's so you have that idea, right? You're okay, I kind of want to go in this direction, I want to go down this path. Really, how difficult does it become to do product research? Because there's a lot that goes into it.
There is, and a lot of it's just being creative, but also just putting in the time and going through the process. And there's kind of I don't know what you would call it, but basically that research method that everybody tells you to use. Open Jungle Scout, open Helium 10, look for products that are between this price and this price, that are doing between this much and this much in revenue, that have X number of reviews. And you can find products that way, but if you're finding them that way, I forget how many new sellers there are on Amazon this past year, but it's, it's hundreds of thousands. They're all finding those things too. And so you look at something that right here, right now looks like an opportunity, but if 10,000 people are jumping on that opportunity, all of a sudden, you've launched your product, you're like, stuff's not performing like it should, it's oversaturated, what happened? And so that's kind of what you run into.
Yeah. I mean, you go from like, a non-competitive market to like now, 5,000 people are trying to like get in there and create the exact same product.
Right.
And so you're like, well, how, like, mine doesn't stand out, or everybody's the exact same thing.
Yeah, and we'll get into, how to differentiate, because I think a lot of people take the easy approach, the least expensive approach, and that's why you have so much competition and you really don't end up being that different or that unique of an offer. And so, customers, unless you have a better price or you have more reviews, there's really no way to differentiate unless you actually put in the work beforehand.
It's like, I think really, right, like, piggybacking off of that, it comes down to like having a good product. Like, that's kind of, what it all comes down to when you're trying to find that market, or you find a market that isn't very competitive. Like, you got to try to stand out. So, it can take a while. I mean, maybe you get lucky, right? Maybe you find something and just it takes off. But then for most people, it can definitely take a good amount of time to find a good, solid quality product.
Yeah. And more often than not, it's the people that are vocalizing their success at Amazon are kind of those ones that when things were easier, they did get lucky. And those are the ones that are like, hey, you can do it too. The ones that their first several products maybe weren't what they expected them to be. It took a little bit of a learning curve. To me, those are the ones that offer the most value. Because they were able to work past some of the obstacles that you can have. But what I wanted to highlight for everybody, there's a couple different approaches depending on your situation. We mentioned, budgeting being one of those things. And some background for, kind of how our business got up and running. Literally just started with arbitrage. I planned on starting a private label product. It's going to be about $6,000. We were getting close to the point where we had that money. We had a life event that basically took a lot of that capital away. And so, when I actually got into selling on Amazon, I had to go with the one with the least resistance, the method with the least resistance, and that was arbitrage. That kind of led into wholesale. But there's a podcast I was listening to as I was doing wholesaling, and I'm just gonna let you know who they are. It's Mommy Income. And they're partnered with the Amazon Files. And they had a very unique approach. It was something that I had never really heard put this way, but I could see the value in it. Because it's basically a hybrid between wholesaling or arbitrage and private label. The nickname is literally poor man's private label. So maybe your budget isn't $10,000, $15,000 for a product. Maybe you just want to see your return quicker. And so what they do is they source products. If you don't have like an ability to wholesale, if you don't have an LLC set up, you don't have a tax ID number, stuff like that, you literally just bundle products from stores. You essentially are looking at what products are in the same market that would work together well, that people are buying together possibly already. Or that would like complete a certain set or offer a certain value by having these products together. You kind of build custom branding, so your own brand featuring these brands. You buy your own UPC codes, like the legit way, GS1 barcodes, not just by buying 100 barcodes for $10 and wondering why they don't work when you get them. Guilty, we've done that.
1 out of 100 work.
Yeah, no, literally, that's how it is. Like you spend, $50, and you're like, well, I've got, one of these that went through, and then 3 months later, the brand name has changed to something else, and you're like, what the heck? Yeah, definitely buy them the legit way. Yeah, turn me down. Yeah, we're getting fired up over here. But yeah, so. To be able to do that, you were able to buy, a smaller number of units. If you're buying stuff from China, you're looking at minimum, 300, 500 units. And then you've got, a month, 2 month, 3 month lead time. Whereas if you're sourcing locally, you can buy 10, 15, 20, 50 units of something, put your bundle together. You're able to see how those perform. If they don't do that well, maybe you get your money back, maybe you lose just a little bit, and then you move on to the next one, right? Whereas when you're doing things, kind of what we'll get into next here with like actually kind of taking that bigger leap, things have to be planned out way better. You have to have more resources financially, and the amount of time that it takes is so much greater. So if you don't have the patience for that or the resources, that's something I definitely recommend checking out. They have a course that they offer, and then they actually do workshops where they'll show you how to basically how to get different wholesale suppliers, and then how to use their catalogs to basically private label your own bundles, your own unique offering to the Amazon marketplace with local products.
It definitely seems like like less risk and like kind of almost a more controlled approach to it. Instead of like taking that huge leap and doing
because
actually launching your full on.
Yeah, you can feel like you've done everything right. Maybe you've spent $3,000 and you've saved up for like a year to get to that point, and then things just don't happen the way that you expected them to. And that's where a lot of people give up, is after that first product, because they have so much invested into it. And really, you can kind of take a test approach, with sourcing stuff overseas as well. But yeah, it kind of takes a lot of that risk away, and then the barrier to entry becomes so much smaller, because if you run out of stock of whatever your bundle is, maybe you hit a home run, you weren't really expecting it, right? Your lead time is maybe a few weeks at max, as opposed to running into that issue, with sourcing stuff in China. You're looking at probably at least a month before you're able to get stuff back in stock.
So we were just talking about like sourcing stuff in China. So with that, you're talking about launching a full-on private label product, right? Ordering 300, 500, 600, so on units, and have them shipped over here. So you're talking like you're really jumping full on into it, and taking that leap of faith essentially. So starting your product, with a brand in mind, how do you establish a brand?
So I think you have to look at what type of customer do you want to have, what type of products do you want to have, and there's several different ways that you can come up with that. It can be something that you're passionate about. It can be something that you just know a lot about, and so you're able to recognize needs and opportunities as you're evaluating the marketplace at Amazon or on Walmart. You're able to see what something is, or you already know what stuff is that people need, and maybe there isn't quite an offer for that yet, or maybe there's a better solution for whatever that problem is, or it's just something that maybe you aren't an expert in. Maybe it's not not exactly something you're passionate about per se, but you see the opportunity in it, and so then you become one of those two things. You make yourself the expert through the research, just by seeing the opportunity that's there.
I think identifying like the customer of the market you want to get into, like what do you find? Finding your ideal customer, like who are you trying to sell to? Because you have that part. You're like, okay, you say something you're passionate about, right? Like you're passionate about hiking, like you're your own customer.
Yeah. At
that point, if you just find like travel, hiking, backpacking, like on Instagram, right? You find those travel pages really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's something that you're super passionate about, but it's something of interest. Yeah. And you're like, okay, well maybe I could create something or have a product that is ideal for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like take me through like either side of the spectrum of those things. Like if you do either one.
So let's go with the hiking thing. So I go on hikes with people that are YouTubers. I use a lot of their, we'll call it expertise, because some of these guys if it's the end of the world, I want to be stuck with them because I might survive. They know how to survive. They're resourceful. They've tried tons of different gear. They know what works for them. They have different systems, and different brands in the hiking space have different offerings. And sometimes you're kind of crossing different brands with your gear because some stuff just works better than others, and so you're able to take that information and have conversations with them like, hey, this is the type of products that we're launching this year. What feedback do you have for this problem? What solution would you like to see for something like this? And literally just asking them for their feedback, and they've been super helpful with that. And so they, the feedback that I got with the numbers already made sense on Amazon, but I literally just took a keyword from something that is only really talked about in the hiking industry, but what products there were, what opportunities there were on Amazon, kind of ran it by them. They agreed that it would be something that it was practical, and going from there. So being able to kind of take the guessing factor out of whether or not it's a good idea or it's going to take off, just gives you more confidence when you go to launch a product. But then also, when you know who your customer is, what their needs are, like for hiking, right? You think about what does someone who likes hiking, what are the things that they enjoy doing, what type of stuff do they buy with regards to their hobby, how frequently do they do their hobby, what dollar amount do they spend on their gear, and what do they expect to get out of it. So for me and my guys, every month to every 2 months, there's kind of these 2-day hikes that we do, right? So our backpacks, most of them have had them for several years. They get them custom made to the pockets where they want them, the material made of what they want. And when it comes to the footwear, they get very specific with what they're looking for there. Stuff like footwear, for instance, only lasts for so many trips. A backpack should last longer, but it's also, you could spend $300 or more on a backpack. Your sleeping bag, they're sometimes $500, $600, $700 for literally just a sleeping bag, right? But there's different pieces of equipment that get layered, especially in the colder weather. The goal is having stuff as light as possible, being able to get it as compact as possible, because everything you have for the next 3 to 5 days potentially is just stuffed into a backpack. So being able to compartmentalize, your food, your clothing, stuff like that, right? And so just knowing that all of those are things that are necessities, you're able to look at, okay, how can I make these better? My first stuff sack for food, after the first trip, the top ripped off of it. It was just cheap. So yeah, honestly, sorry about the ramble. I forgot what you even asked.
No, you're good. No, you're good. I mean,
I'm getting all excited about hiking.
No, you were answering it. Because for you, right, what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Right, you're your ideal customer. So for getting into the, what products would best suit a hiker's needs.
Yeah.
And so that's, that makes it easier to do. And also you have, you're using your resources, using friends, using buddies that you go on hikes with. Hey, how does this sound? Is this something that you would use? Blah, 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 everything. It's that makes the whole process a bit easier. But say on the other end, say you just have an interest, right? Maybe it's not something that you're super passionate about or that you go on hikes often. Yes. But you're just oh, this seems a kind of cool market. How do I get into that?
So there's a few things you can do. Number one, Facebook groups. We have a wholesale supplier for comics. Before the sports card industry blew up, we were already selling a lot of products, and there was a little bit of knowledge just from what my dad had done. He was a collector, but I wanted to kind of know the direction of where things were going, what people used, what type of material for what type of comic, under what circumstances people would use different things, and so I joined 3 or 4 different collector Facebook groups, and I would participate a little bit. I'd more so just kind of creep behind the scenes, but I didn't want to look like someone that was just like using people for that. So I would try to chime in on different things too whenever it was appropriate. So there was one recommendation. Obviously, YouTube. Treat it as if you're wanting to get into that hobby or that way of life, or whatever lends to the product that you're thinking about getting into. Basically submerge yourself into your customers' shoes and try to be them. Maybe you buy products that are already in that niche, and you experience them yourself. Even if it's not something that you currently already using, buy competitors just to see kind of what's out there.
I think that would make sense because, not every, just for Nike, for example, it appeals to everybody, but their niche market tends to be people who are into sports, who are into collectibles
Or politics.
Wow. Well then. All right.
Sorry, we gotta take a knee after that one.
Oh shoot.
You didn't see that coming.
Oh man. All right, that's enough of that. So having either your interest, something you're interested in, or something you're passionate about. Now you get into finding a product. Figuring out what products maybe you want, maybe what products you can afford.
Yeah.
There's that whole process to that side as well.
Yeah. So, when it comes to launching a product, there's always risk and uncertainty. It's smart to try to minimize that as much as possible. The way you do that is making sure that you check all of the boxes when it comes to the numbers on the product, making sure that you know exactly the dimensions of what your product's going to be, the weight, what your fees are going to be for Amazon. You don't want to get stuff in and find out, oh, I'm a different tier, I'm getting hit with a different number, and now all of a sudden your numbers don't look as good as you thought. You don't want to start with slim margins, knowing that maybe you don't have a ton of wiggle room. Maybe it works if things sell well and then they not sell that well, or it takes more PPC spend, or you spend more on ads. We just got into basically the most competitive industry that we've worked in, and our ad spend was 3.5, 4 times what we expected it to be, which is fine because our margins are actually they're big enough to where we started out quite behind, but we're going to be able to make that up here in the coming month. But you've got to know those things, but also give yourself some wiggle room in case things don't work out quite like they should. Another recommendation is basically doing a test mini launch, if you will. Maybe instead of buying 1,000 units of something, you buy 200 or 300. You sell through, set a threshold. I'm going to make a decision on how this is going at unit 175, 200. If you have 300, whatever. That gives you a little bit of time to sell through the remaining units, put in your next order. We broke up our first shipment where some of it was through air, some of it was through sea. That way we got some units in right away. We could kind of see what was going on. We were able to get units selling quicker versus just through the boat. And then we were able to make a decision for our next order, which ended up having to come way sooner than we expected, to where after a month, we were okay, we have to order the next one, or else we're going to run out of stock. So, so you got to look at how much money can you spend, but you can also you can spend a little bit less. Maybe your margin isn't as good because you're buying fewer units, but just to kind of give yourself proof of concept and more confidence going into the next round of product. But you also want to look at not just what's the opportunity for this one product, but looking at the entire industry. What direction can I go from here? Is this just something where I can just be one product and that's it, or can we have a full kind of catalog of offerings? If we're brand registered, is our store of products is it going to look in sync? Can we have customers that are following our actual brand? To the point where maybe our website off of Amazon, people are shopping there instead of Amazon, because then your margins get even better when you're cutting out Amazon's fees. So you want to look at what direction can I go past just this first product.
Yeah, I think some when you were thinking of a product, but kind of creating that idea of like what of the product, what you want to sell, being different and like offering value that isn't easily copied or isn't easily redone by somebody else is huge, because there's nothing more like if you're getting into a competitive market, but then when you're coming in there offering a good, solid, quality, high value product, like that makes a difference.
Yeah. You think about things that are easy to replicate, different color variations, right? Here's this product. Most everyone's selling blue. I'm going to sell orange. Maybe that works, but then someone else comes out with orange. Maybe people just don't like orange, I'm going to sell a 2-pack, or I'm going to sell a 6-pack or a 10-pack. Well, anybody can do that, right? And so changing kind of the schematics of products in general, whether you're making them more luxurious, in which case you would want like your packaging and stuff to reflect that as well, your advertising to reflect that. Maybe you're changing the functionality of something so that it works better, and to do that, oftentimes you'll have to like get custom molds made, and sometimes they're $800, $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 depending on like what the product is, and people hesitate to do that. But if you think about it, if people are hesitating to do that, that means less people are doing it. You have less competition. You're going to be able to differentiate, and not everyone and their grandma is going to be doing that by the time you get your product in, right?
Yeah.
And so what can happen is, maybe people are finding the same opportunity as you, but they're not going that extra mile in making sure that like no one else is going to be doing this, because it's not the easiest thing to do. Even when everyone's jumping into that space, you're still going to stand out. I was actually just kind of scrolling through. I try to keep track of kind of where we rank on different pages for different keywords, and like just the way that we have our picture set up for our products. I noticed that this wasn't even planned, but it's a scroll stopper. The product is rotated totally differently. All of them are facing this way. Ours is facing this way, and we have different items inside of the bundle that stand out as well. And so you've got like same product, slightly different model, same product, different color, same product 2-pack, same product, whatever, and then it's like, boom, here's this that's nothing like that, but totally is practical and applies to this space. And it just, at the very least, it makes customers notice you so that you don't just blend in with everything else.
And I think that right there, like that statement and just the overall mindset that that you're kind of giving out, it's you don't play to compete, you play to dominate. And I know I saw that. And
that should be a
like,
T-shirt.
It really could be. But now like that mindset will work wonders, and it will take you very far.
So people often ask, how much does it cost to get into Amazon, right? If you're trying to work with the smallest budget possible, you're not going to be able to take that like alpha approach, and you're not going to be able to outsell, other people that are in the marketplace. But that's also why I mentioned what I did earlier, where like you can still have a unique way to bring an offering to Amazon that doesn't require a ton of money and also isn't like as sketchy as just arbitrage. If you're buying from legit wholesale suppliers directly from brands, you have the brand's permission. I always ask like, hey, I want to do this, can I? And they're like, yeah, go for it. All the expenses are on me. All I'm doing is just like creating more customers for them, and so it allows you to be able to still have success. Maybe you create 10 or 15 or 20 of these little bundles that maybe each one brings in $500 to $1,000 of revenue each month. You're not making a killing, but they're all locally easy to access products, and so if things aren't going quite as they should, you can easily make adjustments. But if you're going to try and do as little as possible with building an actual brand, you're just going to get squashed. You're not going to stand a chance going into 2022 and the years to come. It's going to be, the bigger guys are going to have a bigger role in e-commerce.
Yeah. I think I know I'm a big mindset person, And I do believe that, like, what you're, what you are driven and like what you're focused on has a huge impact on like your actual like ability or like your actual outcome. And so like that approach, that mindset of like, because it's aggressive but like controlled aggressive, almost like I would put it, as like you are like we're going for it, but like we're going for it as like I know it's gonna work kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like a weird balance.
So the best comparison I can make to what you just said is Grant Cardone. He has, and I feel like I've mentioned this before, but he has this rule. It's called the 10x rule. Basically, when you're planning on doing something, don't plan for what it's going to take. Plan to do 10 times the amount of work that it's going to take to make this succeed. That way you guarantee that it's actually going to succeed. And so, for us, that involved more education. We bought a course that was literally $3,000. With this course, and it's not even like, we needed a course per se, but I wanted something that's going to be like that next level, not just like, hey, we kind of made it, but like, where do we go from here, right?
Yeah.
And so the approach in this course, it's not like, hey, this is how you do it. It's you need to do this, 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 and you guarantee yourself success because you're not doing, the one thing that everyone else is doing. You're doing the one thing they're doing, or maybe you're not even doing that, but you're doing 9 other things that they don't even know exist. And so you're able to really just crush it. But it takes that determination from the beginning, and that willingness to like put in that work and also educate yourself to know more, and to do more than just the minimum of what's necessary.
I think, now like still, kind of talking about researching and start, talking about wanting to learn more. I think like some hidden opportunities when it comes to finding a product, but identifying a market that you're wanting to get into, because there's multiple different ways. I think like not only talking about something you're passionate about or something of interest to you, but keyword research, whether that's Google, whether that's Amazon, giving you ideas, looking just for things that maybe that sell well but don't have like the best ratings, don't have the best reviews. Reading those reviews, figuring out like, hey, is this something I can change? Can I modify this and make this product better? Is it unique enough? Kind of like, like your water bottle, right? Like, or your thermos, like it tells you the temperature, right?
Don't you touch. You broke it.
It doesn't work.
Chinese crap.
It doesn't work. Chinese.
It needs my fingerprint.
Oh, really?
No, it's not that I did.
Oh,
there we go.
Okay. Yeah, like it shows you the temperature on there, right? Like that's something like super unique that like
I designed this logo.
that you. But it's like something that you would like when you're searching for something. You see that like, okay, that's what I want. I think of like seeing ads for like motorized shaker cups. Like you just put your your pre-workout, put your protein powder, whatever you want to put in it. That's like all in this one cup ready for you to go. Instead of having to do it your normal shaker cup that like with the little ball in it, right? Shake it for like 20-30 seconds.
Some of those I feel like might have a patent, but yeah.
I guess I was thinking like it's
generate
how
ideas.
unique it really can be, and like because you're like right when I think of it from like having a regular shaker cup with the ball in it to like the motorized one, it's like someone who saw something like a different or something that can make this product better and then did it, right? Whether it's their their own thing patent, like that's theirs. It's still like identifying a problem and creating like a unique enough product that's like people want that.
Well, and it gets the mind working. The hardest part is just like, where do I start, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can use these tools. One of the ones, kind of like what you're talking about, like Google Trends, social media, but also using Cerebro, where you can basically enter a keyword in Amazon, or Helium 10 basically searches through Amazon, finds other relevant keywords that people are searching that are related to that one. But the most useful feature is it literally tells you the amount of times that people search for these types of keywords in Amazon. And so if you kind of combine all of those together, let's say you find something that has a big demand, but maybe, there's just a lot of like 2, 3-star products that like are the dominant ASINs. Maybe it's a product that people absolutely have to have, and there's just not a better offering. Okay, learn more about it, make a better offering. Make something that's more functional. Make something that read through the reviews, figure out what the customers want. Helium 10 also has a service where you can literally they'll find types of people based off of your criteria for you, and they'll interview them, or they'll do surveys, and then they'll give you the results. For a few $100, you can have a randomized series of surveys that give you information and feedback from actual customers. Based off of the research that you've done, it'll help you kind of narrow down what direction you want to go.
I think with private label and products in general, the bottom line becomes there's opportunities in almost every single market, I would say. I don't think that's a stretch to say that these every major industry, whether that's hair products, beauty products, cosmetics, sports industry, pet, essential oils is big, right? All these different industries, there are opportunities in every single one, but it becomes a matter of putting in that work and putting in the time and the research to find how can I better the product, how can I appeal to these people, or a certain niche or a niche audience inside one of those markets to make it to get the audience and sell to them.
Yeah, there's challenges and opportunities in every single market. It might take more resources to be successful in some versus others, but kind of going back to what you were saying, finding the niche within the niche, a lot of people call it. So some people love thermoses, right? This is, as he mentioned, it's a smart thermos. So not taking the approach that I make thermoses, taking the approach, I make thermoses that are digital. A customer is searching for a thermos versus searching for a digital thermos. The results are going to be very different. They're looking for something more specific, right? When it comes to, let's say you're in the home goods category, instead of just being a bookcase or a bookshelf, right? Looking at specific styles of what people are looking for their home, and that being your target, target products, target customer type. And so kind of getting to where you fit within a bigger category, but people that are searching for what you have are searching specifically for what you have. You don't want to be that new idea that no one knows exists and is never going to actually be searching for, because then you've got to spend a ton of money to get that exposure. That's the benefit of Amazon, is you can know what people want already, and then just find ways to make those better, and make sure that you end up in front of them.
I know for me, I love, it's weird, but there's so many, there's Instagram accounts, multiple Instagram accounts that show just setups of people's, computers, keyboards, mouses, just the whole desk setup. And I love just scrolling through those, because it's everything can be so unique, and I love the sleek design, and just everything has its purpose, and it looks almost crowded, but everything has its own purpose there. And no wires, that kind of stuff. That's really cool to me, and that's a very niche audience or a niche market to get into. And if that's something that interests you, you already know okay, I want maybe a certain phone charging pad that's maybe built into something, something that's you don't notice it hardly, it just kind of sits there. It's okay, charges my phone. Or maybe it's a certain type of keyboard, the way it's laid out, or a mouse pad, whatever you want. I think taking advantage of your interests, or taking advantage of something that you're kind of passionate about, will carry you a very long way in determining what products would be good, and what could sell.
Well, and that comes back to knowing who your customer is and everything about them. How much money do they make per year? How much do they value the comfort and layout of their work system? If you think about people that work from home or gamers or whatever, what does their setup look like? If you're not that person, become that person, for the sake of learning more about it, to be able to know how you can appeal to them. But what that also does is, now that you know who this person is and you've come in with this, now you know other opportunities and other places you can go that appeal to that exact same customer. And so if they like product A, when you come out with product B, it's going to be that much easier to convert that sale. And that's where, having an actual brand, not just random products, but also having an audience that you access outside of Amazon. Whether you're using Facebook, you have a landing page or whatever, before you direct people to Amazon, maybe you have a Shopify store where you sell them your product and you just ship it from Amazon or from Walmart, or from using a third-party fulfillment service, or shipping it out of your house, whatever. Being able to keep track of those customers, so that you can, when you're coming to launch the next product, you don't have to spend so much on PPC, because you can retarget people that already own your product. Maybe you give them a discount. That way they get a special, hey, thank you for buying our first product. We have something new. We'd like you to try it out. Here's X% off, whatever. And so it just gets easier once you get past that first one.
No, definitely. I think really the whole process and experience can be basically brought down to it takes time. It takes effort. It's not just a quick overnight thing. You gotta definitely put in a lot of time to be able to identify, or first just thinking about what market, or what something, a product that you would want to maybe potentially get into, doing that research. Okay, is this something that can sell? Will it sell? Does it sell? But you quickly find out it comes down to time. It comes down to resources.
Yeah, and obviously, people that want attention to whatever their content is, they have to make it seem easy, or if they want to make whatever their offering is, their course, their content more valuable, then they make it seem hard, and then they lay out an easy process. So yeah, that's that's something that's kind of always going to be the case, I think, even when things do get more difficult. But I think eventually people are going to learn that it does take more than just what a lot of the gurus, so to speak, kind of make it seem.
For sure. Well, you have any closing comments? Or your final thoughts?
No, I think this is good. It's kind of a never-ending type of topic, because markets change, logistics change. Shipping through China is the most expensive it's ever been, and it's getting more expensive literally by the day. When we placed our order, he's like, hey, if you don't send us the money by this date, shipping's going to go up. We're on the guaranteed rates for X number of days. So the challenges constantly change, and so it's something that we can always go back to whenever there's new things that are important, to discuss. But a lot of it just comes down to, like you said, just putting in the work, putting in the time, and following processes, and just trying to educate yourself as much as you can to make sure that you can be successful.
Process.
Yeah. I did want to mention, so some of the tools that I mentioned last week in last week's episode, we do have some links. There's a discount for Loom. Is it 50% off?
That's 50.
I think it's either 50 or 15. That really sucks if it's 15. Sorry if I got you excited.
It's
somewhere between 10 and 9%.
I think it might be 20. I think I saw 20.
It's a discount, but it's for 12 months. So it's literally the entire year, but it expires at the end of December. So if you want to take advantage of it, that locks in your discount for the year. But that does end. I wish I would have put it up sooner. Sorry about that. But that does come to a close here. Hopefully they come out with some new discount, because that's pretty cool. But that's something for even just for yourself. If you want to record yourself doing product research, you want to train a virtual assistant on how to do it. Different scenarios. It's definitely useful. I literally use Loom at least 4 or 5 times every single day. So, just wanted to drop that in there.
Good old Loom.
Old Loom. Also, share this podcast if you got any value out of it. If you have questions, please let us know. We will include those in our episode. We'll give you a shout out. And if you have anyone that you would like to see interviewed, I've got a couple people in mind that we're working stuff out with. So yeah, if you have anyone specific, let us know.
All right, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for being here as always, whether it's your first episode or you listen to every single one. We appreciate you all.
Sure.
We'll see you next week. Bye.
Peace.